there's no way. I'm already so still burning. So hold me close now, baby. I do what I'm told, still learning to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line, yeah. You got me shifting the paradigm, no longer wishing, you're my lucky strike. Love the way you ride, look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1 million life, yeah. We could roll the dice, act like you surprised, but you already know. Oh yeah, got lucky overnight. Jackpot when I got the invite. Let me wrap my arms around you, cause I can't go home without you. And my heart just vibe with you, babe. Wanna go sky high with you, babe. Gotta bring you close to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. Cooler than cold, I'm all in. So load up the dice, so heavy. The way that you roll, I'm falling. So I never fall, I'm ready to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line, yeah. You got me shifting the paradigm, no longer wishing, you're my lucky strike. Love the way you ride, look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1 million life, yeah. We could roll the dice, yeah. Act like you surprised, but you already know. You're my lucky strike, and I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. I can't let you go, there's no way. I'm already so still burning. So hold me close now, baby. I do what I'm told, still learning to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line, yeah. You got me shifting the paradigm, no longer wishing, you're my lucky strike. Love the way you ride, look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1 million life, yeah. We could roll the dice, act like you surprised, but you already know. Oh yeah, got lucky overnight. Jackpot when I got the invite. Let me wrap my arms around you, cause I can't go home without you. And my heart just vibe with you, babe. Wanna go sky high with you, babe. Gotta bring you.
Well, folks, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune, because it's time for another week of the RecPoker podcast. That's right. It's Monday night. We're here at 7:30 Eastern. We're broadcasting live on YouTube. We're going to give some prizes away in the YouTube chat. We're going to talk to some fun people in the world of poker. I get to host the show because I've got the best freaking job in the world. My name's Jim Reed, Bluffsterini in the home game, and at RecPoker Jim on Twitter. And if you don't know what RecPoker is all about, it's a fantastic community of amateur recreational poker players who like to have fun while we study together, while we play together, and most importantly, it's more fun when you win. So we try and get better together, and we beat each other up, and we give each other the gears, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So most of what we do over here is free at RecPoker. We're a mostly volunteer-based organization, so I have to thank our sponsors, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. And I have to thank the Wrecking Crew, because you get used to hearing my voice on Mondays, but it's really a crew. It's a village that runs this whole organization that makes all the magic happen. And if you want to find out more about me and the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew, or just listen up, because you're going to meet a few of them right here tonight on the air.
I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5b5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the PokerStars home game.
My name is Joe Kulas. You can find me on Twitter at JoeKoolPhD, cool with a K, or in the home game at Elvita11.
And I'm John Somsky, Poker Geek MN everywhere.
I'm Michael Babker. You can find me online at mbabker, pretty much any place that's worth being.
And I'm Rob Washam, and you can find me as Radman50 just about everywhere.
And we had a surprise addition to the panel tonight. Michael Babker has been jumping into the fore because our long esteemed Mark Praschan was the technical director here at RecPoker for a long time. Literally built the website. Literally put up with weekly meetings with Steve and I for a long time. Mark Praschan needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. A star in the sky, a man among boys. I'm so glad to have Mark back on the show. Mark Praschan, welcome back to the RecPoker podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That was quite an intro, and maybe some of it was true.
Well, I remember, it feels like, I want to say like January 2019 or something like that. January 2020 maybe, where we first got our wires connected through Steve about your being a podcast listener and wanting to get more involved with the organization. And it just so happened that you had this great skill in building websites. And then, I mean, God, a couple years later, we are so much further ahead. You're really a crucial part of what we've built here at RecPoker. And there is no replacing you. It's been remarkably, I mean, we're really lucky to have someone like Michael Babker, who's a very active premium member, one of the OGs over here at RecPoker, to step in and really help with some of the stuff that you've been keeping a hand on the tiller for. And I should give Michael a shout out because he's been fantastic. We even had a little issue over the weekend coming out on our for God's sake, on our Discord channel, and he was right in there on Saturday, not afraid to take the bull by the horns and help out. But Mark, I just feel like we've spent so much time talking, you and I. We've had so many meetings, you've solved so many problems, you've built so much of this stuff here. What does it feel like now? It's about 3 or 4 months since you've moved on. You've had these other fantastic projects that you've been working on. What does it feel like to kind of come back to RecPoker as a bona fide guest and not sort of someone who's part of the organization? I'm so excited to be talking to you like this.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited too. It's great to be on as a guest. We had many meetings and many more hours spent trying to build this thing that is now rec.poker. And so it was a pleasure to work on it for a few years. And then my day job kind of dictated that some of that arrangement would change. And so I stepped away a few months ago in earlier 2023. And been pursuing some other things that we'll be able to talk about. And I'm excited to be here. Thanks again.
Yeah, well, let's dive right into PokerFAX, because PokerFAX is something that I know you started developing a while ago, and we kind of saw an earlier iteration, and you've been tinkering with it in the lab ever since then. I don't want to put it into my own words. Why don't you kind of explain what you've put together here and why it's so valuable to the poker world?
For sure. So it's PokerFAX, FAX. You can kind of think of it as Carfax, but for poker tournaments. And the thought process there is that structure sheets can be way better, because right now there's no real standardized way for them to be formatted. Sometimes you have key pieces of information, sometimes you don't. If you try to access a PDF on your phone while you're at the table, excuse me, That's not going to go well. You're going to have to pinch and zoom, and it's probably going to be difficult to use. So being a website guy as well as a poker guy, I thought, why don't I throw some things together and come up with a demo? So it was actually a long time ago now. It was about 18 months ago. I threw together a demo, and I just put it out on Twitter to see what would happen. And it, at least in my terms, it went kind of viral. There was, I think, 25,000 visits to it within the span of like 24 hours, which is a lot of eyeballs on something that I just whipped together. So the feedback was really, really positive. I heard from people on the panel here, as well as professionals in the industry, pro players, tournament directors. There was a lot of people saying, this is a cool idea. Let's see where this goes. So that's kind of the high level view of what PokerFAX is about.
And so there's ways to kind of compare. Oh yeah, Joe makes a good comment in the YouTube chat. That's 50,000 eyeballs, 25,000 visitors.
Yeah, that's right.
That's really just an even more impressive number of eyeballs.
That's right.
So it's a way to kind of abstractly look at different tournament structures, different tournament formats, and that kind of thing. And what does it break down? What does looking at these different ones and comparing them, what does that let us decide as recreational poker players who are trying to decide where to play?
Yeah, so first and foremost, you're going to have the basic information, the vitals about when, where it is, of course. That's always going to be on any structure sheet. But the thought behind PokerFAX is to standardize it. Some of the cooler stuff that you get once the data lives in a website like this is you can see really quickly, like this tournament has 16% fees. Even if it wouldn't normally be listed that way, it just breaks it down really easy for you. It tells you you've got 15,000 starting chips, or chips in your starting stack, which is 500 big blinds at level 1, or whatever it might be. And it can break things down like how fast is the big blind increasing each level. So that's something that I've never seen on a PDF, where you can look at it and say, this is actually playing pretty quick. This is going to be a fast tournament, even if the levels themselves are stretched out. If your big blind is going up 40% every level, that's going to move along real quick. So
yeah,
stuff
really
like,
interesting.
Yeah, and it's just really the tip of the iceberg too. There's a lot more that can come into this. And
so
go ahead.
Please. I was going to say, if you're in the YouTube chat and you have questions for Mark, feel free to enter them in there as well. And of course, we're going to be doing our food bank prize giveaway at the end. And we're also going to be talking to Joe Kulas a little later in the show as well. So if you've got some questions for Joe, I know the food bank is something that's near and dear to his heart as well. Yeah, so Mark, so I think this is one of the cool things about it. I mean, you can compare some of these not obvious metrics for a lot of the different tournaments. And so is this something that if I play at a local card room, I can take a structure sheet off the rack there and go to the PokerFAX site and enter it, and then get like a readout, or is it something that once the tournament's finished, I can enter data about what happened at certain points along the way, or how do people use it?
Yeah, right now the site is in early access mode. So there's a handful of tournaments that have been picked from around the country. There's a WSOP event. There's, I think, a Run Good event on there. There's only a handful of them right now. Part of the reason I'm so excited to talk to you guys on the podcast today is that it's time for additional feedback. Get more eyeballs on this version of the site. What are some additional things that you'd want to see? You get to help shape what this turns into. So are there some critical stats that you think would be great? Would you like to see one of your favorite card rooms next tournament turned into a PokerFAX? So if you do want that, you can just go right to PokerFAX.com and click on Add Tournament. And then all you have to do is either add a link or a PDF right there. And then I can take that and turn it into a PokerFAX. So it's not a instantaneous thing right now, but it's pretty quick. So generally about a business day.
It sounds like.
Yeah, it's a semi-automatic process right now. So I have to do a little bit of work behind the scenes, but the system displays all the data and breaks everything down for every tournament. We just have to know which tournaments people want to see put on the site, and we'll start with those.
Chris Jones?
Yeah, I mean, Mark, I've been a big admirer of this project from the beginning. I think that having these things be accessible in a mobile way, when so many poker players themselves are accessing this stuff from mobile devices, they are doing that pinch and squeeze, and like even if you're not at a tournament, like if I'm going to a tournament, I'm often accessing it on my phone and trying to figure out how many chips do I get? When does it start? All those kinds of questions.
Yep.
But I'm curious about what you have heard from players specifically about since the early launch of this. What are some of the things that maybe were like that you've added in or have been sort of eye opening to you? That what has been the player response that as people have started to see this, and what have they wanted in sort of the kind of tournament information they're looking for as they're trying to find this information?
Yeah, and thank you for your feedback along the way. I know as long ago as the early demo, you were in there providing feedback, and that was super helpful. One of the biggest things that I heard from pro players is just they wanted the data to be easy to access and standardized, so that they don't have to figure out a new format every time they're looking at a PDF. And sometimes you're trying to look up like a WSOP or a larger event. There's a PDF that has 50 pages in it. So not only do you have to zoom in once you get there, you have to scroll and flip, and it's just not a smooth process. Certainly not something you want to be doing if you're at the table. You don't want to spend 5 minutes trying to, be distracted on your phone, just trying to get a quick piece of information. So that was probably the biggest feedback from players, is that they were just excited about something standardized and web-based so they could access it really quickly.
And then, one of the things I think that if this catches on, one of the things I'll be excited for is not having to have every player at the table keep asking, is this when a break is? When do we get a break? Well, how long are they? Like, it's just like everyone will just know. It'll just be there because like nobody looks at those PDFs, but you'll just be so accessible. But I'm curious on the flip side, what you've heard from like the operational side, the tournament directors, what are the things that they're kind of looking for in terms of implementing this? Or have you got some good response from some of the card rooms and tournament directors?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've had some conversations with some people who are running the series or the rooms in a few cases, and they, I think, acknowledge that there needs to be something better, that there's room for improvement with structure sheets. I get the impression they don't really like trying to make these PDFs for every tournament anyway. So if there was just some standardized system that they could plug everything in, and one that had a lot of player engagement and good feedback that was tailored to what players want to see, I think that would be a win.
And if folks want to go and check out this in action, just go to, I'll add the www.rob because I'm an old guy, so I like to throw that one out there. I know John, it makes John smile every time I do. But yeah, head on over to www.pokerfax.com. And it is, one of the things that I like about it, Mark, is it's all, you're a graphically gifted guy. You always have been. So like everywhere you look, there's like information with like. Everywhere you look, there's some really easy to digest graphic that sort of breaks down exactly what I'm looking for: the buy-in, the guarantee, the starting stack, the speed. It's easy to read. It's got the links to everything right in there. And as Chris says, I like having all the breaks and the color up chips and the color up breaks and that kind of thing in there. It's an intelligent document. Like, I can see why it makes this a lot easier.
That makes me so happy because I've spent a stupid amount of time working and reworking the layout. What would be the most helpful way to display this information? That's one of the biggest challenges in user design and interface design, is how do you take a ton of information and make it feel simple? So that's the goal here. And if I've achieved a little bit of that, I'm glad.
Yeah, a problem we're very familiar with over here. You'll remember, I'm sure. That's
right.
John Somsky, you had something there, I think.
Yeah. Well, first, I agree. Being a computer guy myself, you've done a great job displaying a lot of information in a coherent manner.
Thank you.
One little thing that just off the top of my head since I'm here, that would be I would often find useful is how many big blinds a starting stack will be at the end of registration. So whenever the rebuy period ends, or last time you can rate late reg, how many big blinds is a starting stack at that point in time?
Definitely. It's like you're reading my notebook over here. That's literally the top of the list for the next feature going in. So that'll be sometime this week that'll show up.
Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, because
Rob?
not everyone is interested in registering at level 1. You know, especially as you get into more professionals, they're going to show up a lot later sometimes. So I think that would be super helpful to just see at a glance.
So I had a couple of questions. First of all, if I submit a structure for, let's say, a weekly tournament at our local casino, and I submit a PDF file, do you have to manually go in and then create the structure in your format? Or how does that whole process work? Is that a real manual process, or do you have something automated there?
It's, I would describe it as semi-automated. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes to do the whole thing.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. It was back in the demo stages last year. It took, you know, a much longer amount of time, but no, pretty quickly. So if RecPoker Nation wants to start chucking different entries at me for, you know, adding different tournaments, I'm game for it. So let me know what you'd like to see. Rob, you mentioned recurring tournaments, something that's ongoing, you know, every Monday or every month or something like that. That is something that can be put in place probably in the next week or so also. Right now, it's just one-off events, but coming very, very soon is going to be recurring events.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you are doing a recurring event, there's times where a casino might run the same event for month after month, but then all of a sudden, a year later, they totally change maybe the buy-ins or whatever. The structure might change. The casino might change the way they do things. So then it'd have to be updated. So you'd have to expect someone to let you know about that change so that you could update that, I imagine.
For sure. Yeah. And somewhere down the line, the vision would be to allow card rooms and or series to just go in and make the edits themselves. So that's something on the roadmap. First, we need a little bit more adoption before we get there. But the feedback I've had so far and the early traction has been great.
Nice. Joe Kulas, you had a question, I believe.
Yeah, this reminds me of a discussion that Sammy G had when she came on for her podcast, but she pointed out something that reminds me of my son. My son's colorblind, and poker, unfortunately, has chosen red and green as 2 of the chips, which causes a lot of problems. Have you had a lot of opportunities, given your graphic design, to kind of look at making sure that it's accessible to individuals who have a variety of abilities and disabilities as well?
Yeah, great question. That is definitely something that comes up in web design and just design in general. The WCAG is the organization that organizes the data and is kind of set the standard for what is truly accessible. I haven't run it through all of those checks in the latest version, but I think you'll find that it's very, very accessible with regard to color blindness, the site itself. Try to make sure that everything is pretty high contrast where possible, unless it's just a decorative element. That, of course, doesn't have to be as high. But that's a great reminder. I'm going to take the latest version through those color blindness checks, because part of the mission here is to make sure is that it's accessible as possible.
That's great. Great answer. So Mark, this question isn't about PokerFAX in particular, but it's about sort of the way that we think about tournaments and the way that we gather and study data and that sort of thing. One thing that I think would be helpful, you know, one of the folks here on the panel mentioned knowing what the average chip stack would be at the time of the bubble bursting, for instance, or at the end of registration. Is that something? How much of that are you able to deduce from the stats of the tournament sheet, and how much of it do you just need to kind of have the tournament run several times and sort of check in to see how predictable it is? Or is that even the right way of thinking about it?
No, great question. I totally understand what you're saying. I think what Chris was talking about is how many big blinds a starting stack would be at the time of late registration. But to your point, can we do more advanced analytics? And the answer is yes. There's kind of two parts to how that would work. One is if you could have the organization or like a poker news or something like that has some of that real time or close to real time data, feed some of that in, then you're going to get some additional information. The other part of that is things like average stack. You can do some clever but pretty simple things actually with just like formulas and make some estimates about we expect we'd have this many people remaining during this level based on just the way tournaments usually break down and then the level length, etc. I think the folks over at PokerStars call that the widget. It's the formal name for it. I think they have a widget that they. So there's a lot of things you can do just based on predictions.
Hey, Joe.
So this is just kind of a philosophical question. There's always kind of a push-pull for HUDs and other measures that very, very studied or pro players can have an advantage over the recreational players. And to some degree, there's some of this that sounds like it's going to give people who are in the know of what those constructs are in terms of when the bubble bursts and various metrics that if you don't know it, you're going to be at a fairly significant disadvantage if you don't have that tool. Has that been part of the consideration? Are there concerns by casino owners that you're going to push recreational players out because the pros will have such an advantage with all that information readily at their fingertips?
No, I don't think so. It's not something that's been voiced. I've actually heard some things on the other side and have some ideas that would play the other direction. I think this can make it more accessible to recreational players. A pro can look at a structure sheet and pretty quickly have some insights on how things are going to go. It's what they do day to day. They've been there 100 times. They know what it feels like. But if we can build this out so that not only does it have little helpful info boxes of what does this mean? What is a big blind? What is a starting stack? All those things can be laid right on top of a PokerFAX tournament. And so there's extra learning that goes there that'll help walk recreational players through, I think, and make it more approachable. That's the goal.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there and respond to that because I think this is actually one of those things where the studied professionals, they might be able to glean a lot of that information just by looking at a tournament structure sheet. And what Mark's done with PokerFAX is kind of, in a way that we love to do here at RecPoker, is kind of distill that information into a more bite-sized, absorbable, digestible way of looking at it. So I think it actually might make it easier for Recs to tell different, compare that element of tournaments in a way that up until now has been a little more abstract or hidden. Chris, I think you were next, and then John.
Yeah, Mark, this one might be a little bit out there, but I know that a lot of live tournaments are trying to capture some of the trends that are online. Like everyone kind of loves the progressive knockout tournaments online. They're harder to run in person. Everyone likes to know on an online tournament, you can see exactly how many players are left, exactly how many are we close to the bubble, where are we doing. And I'm curious if you think that this tool, right now it's really just based around structure sheets, but I'm curious if you think that this tool has picks up enough sort of volume where it could actually start to become a little bit of a live tool for actually enhancing some live tournament sort of experiences and maybe being able to address some of those things that people are trying to figure out how to do live.
Yeah, I think so. And that goes back to kind of what Jim was saying about the possibility of adding in real-time information. That's definitely a component that could exist in the future. Not just a planning or an informational tool, but yeah, something that's providing you kind of breakouts on, the average stack is much smaller than would typically be expected at this point. That sort of thing might tell you to adjust your play a little bit, or at least, be more cautious, or the bubble is taking much longer than expected. I'm just going off the cuff here, but that sort of real-time info could definitely be a cool tool that could be added in.
Yeah,
And
John, jump in there.
yeah, so one thing I wanted to mention is regarding for novice players, I think one of the nicest or biggest advantages you have is showing the fee percentages, because I think most players don't pay enough attention to that. And they might decide that when they're looking at the $30 tournament, which takes 50% fees, or the $60 tournament, which takes 20% fees, which one is really the better deal for them. So I think that's great. Also, as far as the real-time things, hopefully this will become popular enough that you could automatically integrate with things like Bravo Live that already has some of that information. I mean, they don't have the structure information the way you do laid out, but they do have the number of players available. And if you could integrate with that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I'm trying to supplement and complement what's already out there in the poker world. There's folks like I mentioned earlier, Poker News does a great job of, reporting on some of the larger series and events. So my hope would be that PokerFAX could slide right in alongside them and provide some extra information.
Nice. Well, I've got one more question for Mark here. So last chance, folks, if you're watching live on YouTube, get your questions in there. So I'm glad that John was the person who was speaking earlier, because everyone who knows poker is familiar with the Somsky ratio. So that's the ratio between the player with the smallest chip stack and the player with the largest chip stack at the final table. That's settled, established poker lore as far as I'm concerned. But what I think we need, I'm trying to figure out a way to do a metric on tournaments. Like if you play in our PokerStars home game club, the PokerStars lobby has a chip graph tab that you can open that will show the tournament average chip stack as the tournament progresses. And you can kind of see at times it's inclining in a steeper level, and then it flattens out, and then it curves back up again. So that's kind of, it's an interesting, it's obviously, you could predict this or you could track it in real time, but it kind of gives you a sense of what the average chip stack is at every point. Mark, what I want, the read scale or whatever we'll call this damn thing, if we can figure it out. I want to know the average number of the average stack in big blinds for each part of the tournament as we go along. Because knowing the chips and knowing the structures is one thing. I feel like it should be really easy to just have this sort of, you'd have a shape, you'd have essentially like a line defined on a graph that would represent the like speed of the tournament related in average big blinds. Does that even make sense? Is the read scale just a thing of fiction and mystery, or is there a way that we could actually standardize that across various tournaments and tournament structures and styles? And that kind of.
Yeah, that's a cool thought. I think there's two ways to approach that. One of them is using estimates based on how things have played out previously. And you could kind of come up with a general shape of this is what we would expect at, level 9 when the blinds are 1,000, 1,500, and what would the average stack typically be? I think that's a cool thing that we can definitely put in there. The other part would tie more into real-time information, where if you could actually have close to real-time stats in this tool, then you could have all sorts of information. I love the idea of adding additional charts. And now that the foundation has been laid for the tournament structure sheet on PokerFAX, it's going to be easier and easier to add additional things. One of the things I want to look at is payouts and what that, visualize what the payout looks like. Are they paying 10% and is it all top heavy? Or is this tournament planning on paying, 22% and it's going to be really shallow, ladders as the pay scale goes up? I think that sort of information is really helpful, especially to recreational players too.
No, I think that's a great point. Yeah, it's sort of the steepness of those, right? Because those are very relevant and they're hard to describe formulaically. Rob?
Yeah, and those really affect ICM factors based on how shallow the payouts are or how steep they are. So I was just going to mention one thing. I know that back in the day, I planned a few home game tournaments for different players or different people that I know. And there's this website out there where you can put in how many players you expect, the denomination of chips that you happen to have, and the numbers of chips you happen to have, and then how long you want the tournament to last. And it will create a structure sheet for you. So I'm assuming that tournament directors around the country use that type of software when they decide, okay, I expect 100 people and I want this tournament to be over in 4 hours. What structure do I need to do that? So if that already exists, then I would think that there would be some way to use that type of program that already exists along with yours to come up with some of these metrics that we're talking about. Like how many people do you expect to be left after 8 levels or something like that? So that would give you kind of your averages without having to worry about tracking actual tournaments that happen, because that information is already out there that people are using to determine how to structure a tournament to begin with. So
for sure.
Just a thought.
Yeah, and that reminds me very much of a couple weeks ago, you guys had John Barrows from Running Aces on.
Yes.
And he was talking about specific things he does to kind of tweak where that tournament is going to play. You know, how many hours do they want the tournament to go? Yeah, so that data exists and it can be reverse engineered and shown in a more helpful way for PokerFAX, for sure.
Nice. Chris, you want to roll on out of here with the last question of the interview?
So, Mark, I mean, if somebody's listening to this right now and saying, I want this to exist. I'm tired of pinching PDFs and not being able to find all the information I want. I'm tired of all these different sheets. This sounds amazing. What can a player do? I mean, do you want them to help you be testing? Do you want them to be advocating at their local card room to look this up? What are some things that our average listener might be able to do to help get this project off the ground? I guess it's already off the ground, but keep going.
Further off the ground, rocket ship, up and up.
To the moon.
To the moon. The first thing is go to PokerFAX.com. You can check it out, see what we're talking about, see what sort of information is there right now. Like we mentioned earlier, you can add tournaments. It's totally free. You don't have to pay anything. You just click add tournament and throw the PDF or the link on there, and then we can take it from there. We've had good conversation happening over at Twitter. So it's at PokerFAX, and you can tweet at PokerFAX and we can talk about it. I know some folks in the industry like Kevin Mathers have been really helpful in spreading the word and getting some reach out there. I think he and some others see that there's a lot of potential in this and would like to see something come of it. The other thing that I would ask folks to do is to talk to their local card room. Say, hey, have you thought about doing structure sheets in a different way or putting them online in an accessible way? And you can mention PokerFAX. I'd be happy to have more conversations with the folks that are running card rooms or different tours. Would love that.
Nice. Well, I hope if you're listening, folks, check them out at www.pokerfax.com and also on Twitter, like I say. And you might still be able to reach him at mark@rec.poker. If you send that email, you never know. Mark, don't let me put words in your mouth, though. What's the best way for people to actually get in touch with you if they want to talk to you or find out more about you and what else you've been working on?
Yeah, probably Twitter. So it's at Mark Praschan. You'll probably need the show notes for the spelling of that last name, but
we'll make sure it's in there. And hopefully we'll be doing a RecPoker road trip nearby sometime in the future, Mark. And I know it'd be great to get together in person again as well. But if not, we'll just have to have you on the pod again sometime soon and put up with Twitter in the meantime. But congratulations on PokerFAX. It's an exciting product. I can see how it's going to be helpful to a lot of people. And I think it's just a matter of time until it takes off. So kudos, man. Way to go.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, that's Mark Praschan, everybody. So we're going to have another conversation here before we get to our home game results with Joe Kulas. First, I just want to mention, folks, if you're listening to this live, you've still got some time. People are putting travel plans together for Las Vegas this summer. Maybe go visit a certain world famous series of poker tournaments. I don't want to get the lawyers involved, so I'm not going to say specifically with which one, but I'm going to be down in Las Vegas for the last 2 weeks of June with a lot of RecPoker poker friends. We're going to be getting together, having some kind of RecPoker hangout. We're going to be competing. We're going to be having a lot of fun down together. There is a thread in the forums right now. And again, they are free. If you're a free RecPoker member, just head on over to the forums, Poker Travel Adventures. And there's a thread right now of people comparing dates, so we can kind of see if there's a good time to have a meetup where the most people possible are there. Also, I snore terribly, but that's the only complaint people have about me as a roommate. And I am looking for a roommate, someone to help me defray my hotel costs while I'm down in Las Vegas. So if the dates work out, you never know. Maybe we'll end up sharing 2 beds in a room. Joe, I know your mind just goes to these places. And speaking of me being a terrible roommate, I just want to take this moment quickly to thank my wife, Brown Bradley, for 12 wonderful years of marriage. We just celebrated our anniversary this weekend, and she's been putting up with a lot lately, as does anyone who has to spend too much time with me. But Brown, if you're listening, I love you dearly, and thanks for 12 great years of wedded bliss. We are just getting started. Now, speaking of just getting started, so as you know, RecPoker, we have new premium members all the time. We have new Wrecking Crew members all the time. We just keep growing as an organization and attracting more and more fantastic people here to the crew. So one of the latest is Joe Kulas. If you've been listening for the last while, you've heard Joe being a frequent panelist here on the podcast and in some of our learning sessions. Joe's actually putting together his own monthly group, his own monthly event. And the very first one of those is right around the corner on Thursday, April 20th. So I thought this was a good chance to introduce you, Joe, to the rest of RecPoker Nation a little bit. We can all kind of find out a little more about you. You've got an interesting story, and you bring all sorts of value to the table here in our poker analysis group. So why don't we just start by, I guess, Joe, thanks for coming on the RecPoker podcast.
You're welcome. And I'm glad you didn't say, that I'm known for making smart-ass comments throughout the last podcast.
People know. Regular
all right.
listeners know. They've figured that out for themselves. So Joe, you and I have talked a lot about various ways to make RecPoker as great as we can. We share an affinity for supporting local food banks and for kind of combating the food insecurity that people find themselves in around the world, but particularly in your own neighborhood, necessarily in your own community. So let's go way back, man. What role did poker play in your life? How did you get involved with poker? And tell us a little bit about like kind of what you love about it and how you've made room for it in a very busy life otherwise.
Well, look, everybody has the same poker origin story to some degree. Mine was associated with the foundation that I run. Every year we run a poker charity event, and so I would go to I would have to play to some degree. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I'd have the sheet out and trying to figure things out. And then lo and behold, I won one. And I said, wow, must be brilliant, and then I went on to
Easy
lose
game.
more,
Yeah, right.
and I lost a lot. And, as I've heard, so I can say this from talking to other poker players, is that there's a little bit of arrogance saying, well, I'm a smart guy. I should be able to figure this out. I got to start studying. You start reading books saying, I'm going to dominate this little parlor game. And you kind of get trapped in the context of, well, this is where I can spend a lot of time learning things, enjoying the time. I mean, in Connecticut, we don't really have that many places to play just up at Mohegan. So I spent more time studying than I did actually playing in the hopes of winning this one tournament every single year. And, and then you start listening to podcasts and suddenly you find yourself kind of wrapped up in the world. The thing about, in terms of, what place it became in a busy life is that it's pretty lonely in terms of being a pastime, right? unless you can find a group, but it's hard to find a group because nobody wants to spend the money if you're going to a large casino and it's a scary thing, and nobody's as excited about it as you. And so as I started listening to the podcast, then RecPoker kind of percolated to the top, in addition to some other ones. I mean, I think it's well known that I like the Thinking Poker podcast and some of those, more cerebral ones that have some interest in some other areas. But then RecPoker started to be the one that seemed to be kind of fit with the kind of poker that I wanted to play or that I had time for. Never going to be a pro. I can't make. I have realistic expectations about what my hourly would ever be in this game. It's probably like -$6 an hour is probably the best I'm ever going to reach. But I have a job. I like to have two jobs. I'm very busy, and this is just a pastime that I do. And I wanted to find people that were interested in being serious about it, seemed friendly. So RecPoker seemed to be the place, and it just so happened that everybody was either from the Midwest or Canada, or moved from the Midwest to Las Vegas, and kind of fit with my mindset about how people should interact with one another. And as I became more involved, going from just a community member to somebody who was in the premium, I just said, well, hey, I have something a little different that a lot of individuals don't bring, that I thought maybe people here could be beneficial. And I knocked on the door 55 times and you said no 54. And then finally you said, I'm just tired of it. And you can come in and, just be part of the group, but just keep quiet. As long as you keep quiet, we'll be all right. And, I've failed you at every single turn. So.
No, it's true, though. I think, I hear from a lot of people that become premium members here. There's this sense of people say, listen, I've got great friends and I love poker, but my friends don't love poker. And it's hard to find people to have like meaningful strategy conversations with, or like you said, just to share my excitement. Let alone to actually like get a crew going to a casino somewhere, taking a road trip. I've been on those trips, and half the people want to go drink or play blackjack, and it's not like you end up with all your buddies around a poker table. So I think that kind of sense of community has always been what we've been striving for, and so it's great to hear. I know that is something that a lot of our members find here, which is fantastic. Now you do bring a particular approach into the way that you think about poker from your own background. Why don't you talk a little bit about your parallel track, the sort of how you got into running this foundation, what you've been studying and working on in the meantime, and then we'll save a little time to talk about your monthly session that's coming up soon.
So I think the foundation is kind of peripheral. It's more related to the field that I'm in and raising money for research. So it's just always been a charitable thing, and I work on that because I kind of enjoy it. What I think though is the broader issue is that I'm a clinical psychologist with a specialty in clinical neuropsychology. For those of you who I have insomnia, they want to be treated, I can give you a long diatribe of what that is. But basically, I've studied brain behavior relationships and through undergraduate and graduate degree, and I've got a doctoral degree and fellowship. And Binkley will kill me if I don't say that I'm board certified, because
you'll hear about
says I'm required to, to say that.
It's true. It's true.
So, in all of those things, I mean, it's interesting when you're a psychologist, is that people presume that you're just simply going to roll over poker tables because you can stare into people's souls and really just glean every single piece of information that you can from them. And while that's true, I try to leave my skills at the office and not use my superpowers at the table. Poker's a math game. And so there's a lot of different things that I had to learn as well, even though I can, there are some aspects of tells and things like that come a little bit more naturally given my training. But I think that, why I think my experiences are different, because there's lots of psychologists floating around giving advice, and there's lots of non-psychologists floating around giving advice. And if you know anything about me, I'm a little bit of a curmudgeon, and I think that a lot of it is actually wrong and wrong-headed and gives people the wrong ideas about a lot of different things. I'm going to, just go out on a limb here to create controversy so everybody can show up at my presentation in a couple of weeks. And I just want to say, I don't think Tommy is right about everything.
Oh my
He's a
God.
nice guy. Fantastic, but not everything right.
Send
now,
all your hate
now that I've
mail
lost
to-
everybody. But...
Yeah, no, that's right. No, but I think that's a really good point, Joe, because like, you said before, the poker world is full of well-meaning people who are saying things that seem to make sense, but they're not really credentialed or trained in those areas enough to speak from a place of expert knowledge in those areas. So, is there something in particular is there one like bad piece of info out there in particular that gets your goat, or are you just going to try and sort of go month by month and sort of exploring the space with what's in front of you?
Well, my goal is to just rip out every single idea of, common knowledge that poker players have about psychology and shake it up and show them what the world is like. I think a good way to describe it in all seriousness is that we have a lot of beliefs about how we process information. And everybody talks about Kahneman's dichotomy of fast thinking and slow thinking, right? And we like to break things down, and poker players are going to become slow thinkers on everything. They're going to generate all the information they can and make absolute proper decisions at every single moment. And I think that, in the same way that when you look at my first discussion of bad beach stories, is that the story is always much more complicated than that. And you can't ever, your brain processes information in the way that it processes information because it's evolved to that point in order to be able to survive. So the likelihood that you're going to be able to shut everything down in terms of what your brain does is probably not a good idea in the first place, because you'll be killed by the first tiger that comes along. But secondly, it's not realistic. And so I think that you need to be able to understand that interplay at a more complex level to be able to use it effectively, rather than simply believing that you can turn yourself into a sociopath and make all your decisions without any context of emotion that goes into it. And it isn't so much the matter that I'm going to train everybody to become that perfect player, but at least to understand it better and to have it be accessible, but also to understand the complexity that comes into it, so that poker players don't leave the table thinking, I got mad at that player when they took my money, and that means I'm a bad player. And that's one of the things I'd like to do. So I don't know if that helps conceptualize in terms of what I want to do, but I think that that was what would be useful.
We got a question from the chat here from Dean C. Did he ever win that tourney he was working towards? That one that you, I guess the foundation one. You won it first to get the juices flowing, but then after you started studying and applying yourself, have you won it since then?
I have not. And in fact, I regularly get beat by the people that are pulling out the hand charts and saying, if the ace is on the bottom, can I roll it through with the king? No, you can't do
that. That's awesome.
But next year.
Yeah, next year. There's always next year, right? The mantra of every live MTT player. So, Joe, your session's going to be at 7:30 Eastern on Thursday, April 20th. And it will always be on that third Thursday of the month going forward. And I'm looking forward to joining you. You've got a new video that just came out the top of the month here. And if people want to check out Joe's videos and join the sessions, there's a group right now. The groups we don't talk about enough here at RecPoker, but if you go to rec.poker/groups, you can see all the different groups that we have set up here, the learning groups, the community groups. And I really encourage folks to go poke around, join a few of these, because you can share documents, photos, spreadsheets, things that people within the group are uploading to the forums. You can post in the forums with each other so everyone can be on the same page about stuff. And Joe Kulas, PhD's Poker PsyOps group is one of the ones that you can join. I'd encourage people to go and check that out. Joe, what else is on your mind?
I just wanted to say that I think if people have questions about things, right, particularly about things that they read about in various places, if you're on Jonathan Little and he's making some sort of statement about something, or trying to remember, somebody was posting recently about family therapy and constructs of anxiety and how it relates to your parents and stuff like that. Post that in there, because that might form something that could be useful in terms of the presentations. And I'd like to say I know everything. There are a few pockets of dark areas that I don't know, and I could probably use a little bit of lead time to be able to look at what the science says about things, because this is not just Joe's ideas about how the world works. What I really want to do is put a scientific standpoint. I'm published as a scientist. I have my own publications that I have, so I have a little bit of actually I have a fair amount of understanding of how that stuff works, and then can really dig down into what's state of the art rather than what's been presented by others or filtered through others. So
yeah, and
post away, send me emails.
Yeah, you've got a convert already in the chat here, Dean C, who I think is one of our new premium members. Actually, I saw a few new emails coming in this week. We got a few new members joining up. So if it's the same Dean, and I think it is, says I'm going to be in asking questions. There you go, Dean. April 20th. And Joe's one of those guys like me. We have this fun. We self-deprecate, but we also like to sort of brag at the same time sometimes. Joe does a really good humble job here, but he's actually extremely well credentialed. He's gone to some great schools. He's a lecturer. He's got a private practice. Like, we have this, I'm not sure if it's been mentioned yet, but a board certified psychologist here. And so he's got access to, parts of the educational tree that a lot of us don't have access to. And so it's no small deal to have a professional like this coming and putting his services available, not as therapy, of course, but as someone who can answer questions about how the brain works and talk to people about how the brain works in the game of poker. I think this is really going to be something that I hope our members take advantage of, because it's a pretty unique offering in the world of poker, and just one of the perks of being a premium member here at rec.poker. Joe, if folks weren't paying attention at the beginning of the show, but they want to learn more about you, they can go to rec.poker/crew and click on your smiling face on the Wrecking Crew page there. Or they can look for you where in the home game and where else on Twitter and that kind of thing.
So Twitter, it's at Joe Cool PhD, cool with a K, so it's KOOL. Or I am Elvita11 in the home game. And it's Joe Cool PhD at rec.poker, right? I think that's I'm learning all the new addresses I've suddenly added to the 65,000 other addresses that I have.
That's right. There you go. Everything that Michael Babker and I have been doing behind the scenes on the technical front to set up the new Wrecking Crew material for Joe. So that's fantastic. Well, Joe, I'm excited for that. We're going to roll into some home game results here now. So I'm going to tell everyone it's a good time to type the words food bank into the chat. We're going to be doing our raffle here. Chris Jones has been selecting the perfect nerdy die to use to choose this week's winner. If you're, and again, we're partnered with all these amazing training sites. So someone's going to win a free month either at RecPoker, or if they're already a RecPoker premium member, then they'll be winning a free month at 100K Studios, at Range Trainer Pro, at pokercoaching.com, a few other places. So it's just one of the perks of being a premium member. Don't forget to type the words food bank into the chat right now. In the meantime, John Somsky, we've got some exciting home game results to get into.
Yes, well, and before the home game results, we have a reminder that on April 19th is the very first annual Go for the Gold tournament. So if you have ever won a silver pin, you are eligible to play in this. And only if you've earned a silver pin are you eligible to play in this tournament. And as of right now, only 17 of the 36 people who are eligible to play have signed up for the club.
Is that like a pin overlay? Is that what's happening here?
Is exactly what's happening here. And before anyone asks me, no, you cannot take the place of someone who hasn't signed up. If they don't sign up, it's going to be their loss, but there's still time. It's April 19th. All right. Then first, we had the No Limit Hold'em Championship Series on Wednesday, April 5th. And Bone Crusher 14, Marcel Dusk, got his first No Limit Hold'em Championship victory. On April 3rd, Keto Man 335, Kian Tavakoli got his 5th nightly victory for the year. Duck and Run 99, Michael Savage got his 1st nightly victory for the year.
Yeah, he's in the chat tonight too. Way to go, Michael. Could win twice tonight. You never know. You never know. You already won a home game club. You could win a raffle too.
Kekgeek got his, that's Kekgeek Senior, got his 4th nightly victory for the year. Lars Opening, George Borden, got his 1st nightly victory for the year.
Nice.
And on the Discord chat, it was announced that he totally owned that heads up. I don't know if that came from his opponent or if someone else was just watching. I'm just saying words were said.
Hey, listen, I've noticed Larson Opening coming onto the scene every Tuesday night in our online play and hang. There's a group, all the premium members are welcome to come and have fun with our gang on the Tuesday night OPA. And when he started showing up, a couple people were like, who's this Larson Opening guy? Like, he's making waves here in the home game club. And I'm glad he's finally found a home in the winner's circle. Way to go, man. Overdue and well-earned. Congratulations.
So
yeah, that was his heads-up opponent, too. That was his heads-up opponent that made that comment, because his heads-up opponent kicked my butt in the February Tournament of Champions heads-up.
I see.
He's been in the heads-up situation a few times, so he knows what he's talking about.
Amazing.
So, and evidently this time he had a good heads-up opponent.
Oh, damn. Yeah, Joe, jump in there. We like to interrupt.
I had once in
that was
Discord,
cold,
somebody said
John.
I was
very cold.
PWNED. Is that the same thing?
Oh, yeah, I think that's it.
Same thing, right?
That's it. Yep. No, it's quite a compliment. Quite a compliment.
Well, and while we're interrupting and going off the rails, is Larson's Opening a chess move? Is it a well-known chess opening?
I believe it is a chess move.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's a good one. Anyway.
It's an early one.
2021, Bohica got his or her 1st nightly victory for the year. Then East Coast Bidder Ben Enslow
there he is.
got his 1st daily mixed victory for the year.
There he is.
And then the very next morning, or that morning actually, East Coast Bidder Ben Enslow got his 2nd international victory for the year.
Wow. Okay.
Then the A Big Deal 1992, Brian DeHaven got his 2nd international victory for the year.
Nice. That is a big deal.
And then KB got
Doug.
his 2nd. You're doxing again.
No, I'm doing it again. No, sorry, Doug. No, wait, no. Sorry, Mr. Barons. That's better. Now no one will know that his name's Doug.
Yeah. Okay. Now then, KB got his 2nd LPP victory of the year. So he can contact Jim at rec.poker. Again, that's Jim Reed, but Jim at rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
There you go. Yeah, Doug's a fantastic guy. No one deserves it more. So congratulations, Doug. Send me that email. Actually, Doug and I email every once in a while. He's got all sorts of great feedback on the site, how we can organize our material better. He's been a great resource for RecPoker Nation, so I'm not surprised to see him kicking butt in the there's some fun stuff going on in the YouTube chat here. That's why you gotta show up for the YouTube chat, folks. It's live, it's free, it's every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern. And not only do you get to win a prize, but you get to see all the fun stuff that happens in the YouTube chat. Not all of which is repeatable here, because there might be children listening. We don't know that. Speaking of exciting things to share, I just want to mention that people still have time. The Running Aces anniversary tournament is playing from April 26th to 30th. It's a $500 buy-in tournament, and it's right around the corner. If you're listening live, you've got about 2 weeks to get your butt over to Columbus, Minnesota, and join the fun over at Running Aces. Again, that's the Running Aces anniversary tournament, $500 buy-in from April 26th to 30th. So yeah, I think we're going to take a note from Joseph Kulas here. When we do start having to get the lawyers involved, we'll give them, do we cheat them and how? Give them a call. Make sure we've got them on retainer That's I've heard good things.
And hopefully they don't fine you for every time you mention the name, because you just like once you start that process, it's just like you can't stop saying the name.
It's true. It's true. It's like a little short. Eric Anderson wants to know, is the Tournament of Champions tonight? It is. And so tonight is right after we stop recording this. We'll be recording the final table of the monthly Tournament of Champions, because every month, one of our monthly features is the online review and hang. You've heard about the online play and hang every Tuesday night. We also every month review the play of the final table of the Tournament of Champions, which is a lot of fun. No soft seats in that one. You have to win a RecPoker home game even to find a seat in the Tournament of Champions every month. And yes, Eric, that is tonight, 9:00 Eastern. Eric also says Larson's opening is a chess move and way over my head on Wikipedia. Okay, I think you're in good company there, Eric. Then that doesn't surprise me. So I see a few people have typed the words food bank into the chat. We're going to give them one more chance before we roll the die. Does anyone have anything else coming up that people should know about? I know John mentioned next Wednesday, the 19th, is the Go for the Gold. Very exclusive tournament, no asterisks. Will be coming out of that tournament, although I know one at least is going to be working their way in. Other than that,
well,
I think
actually, that could be a way that an asterisk comes out. I mean, if an asterisk goes in, an asterisk comes out. Garbage in, garbage out. Isn't that?
it is. That's the logic machine. That's how it's always worked. That's how it's always worked.
Yeah, and before you play in that tournament, you could visit the book study, because we'll be talking about exploiting situations in The Poker Brain by Matt Matros. So it might give you just a little bit of a tweak when you go into that Tournament of Champions and look for those situations that you may be able to exploit.
I like it. Rob's running our book study, which is probably our longest running feature here for our premium membership. We do 2 or 3 books a year. Rob is our fearless leader, preparing slides, prepping the discussion, facilitating the group, and he does a great job with that. And this has been a really interesting one with The Poker Brain by Matt Matros, and it's been great to see all the material going up in the forums there and people jumping in. It's not too late to get involved. You can catch up on previous episodes in the archive and come join the fun every other Wednesday night. All right. I think we've given people enough time. Chris, I don't want there to be any tomfoolery or bamboozling. So I see Eric, Michael, Dean, Evil Roy, just 4. I see. So folks, your odds are really good of winning a prize. You might just want to just pop into the YouTube, just put it on your phone while you're driving home or something like that, or maybe while someone else is driving home. And just keep it up until the end here, because if you enter the words food bank into the chat, some of these months that we're giving away are worth like $40, $50, $80 a month for the membership to some of these sites. So it's no joke. Come win a prize for free here in the YouTube chat. All right, Chris.
Get home alive. Don't type food bank to drive.
No, that's right. But if you're going to help out our sponsors from last week, and do it from the right lane of the highway. Don't waste your time in the left lane of the highway. That's for suckers. Thank our sponsors by shouting RecPoker out the window as you enter the right lane. The right lane. All right, Chris.
I should mention that one of my upcoming episodes will be a complex psychoanalysis of why Jim seems to hate cars and roads so often.
It's really just certain cars on certain roads, multi-lane highways, and the cars that drive slowly in the left lane of them.
Don't give away the lead. Wait, we're
you got me started.
We'll help you, man.
We're doing a whole nother 20-minute segment right now. Okay, no. That's right. All right, Joe. Thank you. I need that help. I'm looking forward to that. All right, Chris,
am I rolling? Is that what's happening
I
now?
think it might finally be time to roll the dice. Yeah, let's see what we can do here. You got the 4-sider?
I do. And it is, I had to turn on the light here. It's a 3.
A 3, that's Dean. Dean just cannot stop winning. So, Dean, lucky you, I believe, are already a RecPoker premium member. So you have won something very exciting. Send me an email, jim@rec.poker. And we'll figure out the details about exactly what your choices are to win and how we can put it in your hot little hands. Congratulations, Dean, and thanks for joining the show. Well, folks, if you're listening, I hope more of you are like Dean. Come show up on Monday nights, 7:30 Eastern on YouTube here and have some fun with the group. And other than that, I guess with no other news to share, I just really have to thank the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. Michael Babker, Chris Jones, Joe Kulas, Rob Washam, John Somsky for joining me in the booth, Mark Praschan for being a great guest and all he's done, and the rest of you listeners, you're the best. I'll see you next week, if not before. Thanks again.